And I'm here with Jared, the vocalist and guitarist of Australian Black and Death metal band Earthrot. Welcome, Jared.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm really excited, a little bit nervous.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Let's just get into it though. So I want to talk to you, of course, about Black Tides of Obscurity, your third full-length release that hit our faces just this year. Not too long ago, actually.
2 months.
2 months, gosh,
yeah.
Time is just going way too quick. The response from this album, from what I've seen, has been pretty big. But for you guys, getting reactions from your fans and from media, how's it been for you guys? Like, what's the response been?
It's been great. This is our first album released via a label. So now we're on Season of Mist from the release of this album. So the reach has been quite different. Australia, obviously, we know we've been touring Australia for 5 years. We've been kind of getting around, meeting people and expanding things here. But really, it's the notice internationally that's been different for us. So we're hearing a lot more from countries that we've never played in, you know, like a lot more from the US. And I mean, we've toured Europe twice, but there's still so many places that we haven't been. And so starting to hear things from fans and having people going, hey, you've got to come play in our country. Sooner rather than later would be better, but yeah, it's been fantastic.
Oh, that's great to hear. I'm glad that you're getting some recognition outside of Australia as well, because that's not always easy to do. So
no, it's not.
Far away from everything. Lyrically, this album for me felt pretty cathartic. You know, there seems to be like a lot of inner struggle going on here. Who writes these lyrics, and what is this album's story, so to speak?
Typically, lyric writing is mostly me with kind of like help pitching in from other people. This album was myself and Colin. There's definitely a lot of inner struggle. It's essentially a theme album. It's loosely Lovecraftian without being like directly, here are some Lovecraft ideas and here's what we're doing with it. But definitely inspired by. There's a lot of kind of internal struggle and processing the imperceivable.
Yeah, I felt that pretty strong. Very cool. I love that you've got a bit of a Lovecraft thing going on there too. That's really cool. So we just talked about what you guys have done tour-wise previously. I feel so bad for you guys. You know, you've just landed this massive album, and I think that this was fairly, one that fans have been anticipating, and now we've been struck with COVID times, I call it, which has seen the scene essentially shut. What are you guys planning as far as, I know it's hard to foresee because we really don't know when it's going to take back up, but are you guys sort of strategizing as to what your plans will be when you can start touring and where you'd like to tour in Australia, etc.?
We're still kind of penciling in dates and tours for next year.
Right.
Really, it's like a fingers crossed, hopefully these things work out to a point where we can leave Australia next year and go do some more touring. I'm not really anticipating us making it internationally again this year. It really doesn't look like that's going to happen, but we have no problem getting in a van and driving around Australia and doing some more tours there. Like that's actually
good to know.
It's a ton of fun. And if that's the way things need to go for a while, where we're touring Australia only for another, 6 to 18 months or something, I'd more than happy to do that. That's a fantastic way to do it. But, for us, it's definitely, pencil in dates internationally. And then once things open up here, I'll start locking in what we can. And I imagine we'll be doing a lot less flying around Australia and a bit more driving. So
yeah, I think so. Internationally, what countries do you have your sights on?
We've been to Japan quite a few times. So we're definitely due back for a first trip with the new album. It's been a few years since we've been to Europe. Again, like with the new album, we want to hit everything. But kind of Central Europe, like Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, France, and of course, Norway, Sweden, Finland are great countries for us.
Perfect. Well, I hope you guys can get there sooner than later, that's for sure. I actually have a question from an Instagrammer. I put a bit of a thing out that people could ask a question. I got a pretty cool one back. This is from Rob Dunn. He's an Aussie metalhead, big fan of you guys. He wanted to know if you guys are thinking about what could happen to the scene if it shuts down longer than we anticipated, how you're going to sustain your band as a business, and kind of keep doing what you love without that ability to be able to do things live? It's a bit of a hard one, but it's a good question at the same time.
It is. It's a really good question. I actually work outside of the band. I work in live music as well. So it's particularly relevant to me because when I'm not touring with Earthrot or working shows for us, I'm doing it for someone else's band or another artist. Right. So it's definitely something I'm thinking about quite a lot at the moment. A lot of bands are doing things like live streams. You know, they're getting together and writing the new album. You know, you can do a lot of recording at the moment. But for us, we're still based between Perth and Melbourne. There's 2 members in Perth, 2 members in Melbourne. So I don't see us being able to get up and do like live stream concerts like a lot of bands are. Yeah. So we're looking more at definitely recording towards writing and recording the next album, because we can kind of do our parts individually and then send them, you know, to each other and to our engineer to get mixed and mastered. So there'll definitely be a lot of writing going on. As far as performance, we are definitely quite limited. So there's not really an easy solution for that for us and for a lot of other bands. I do think, though, we'll get Australian borders open much, much sooner than international ones.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I anticipate a lot more Australian touring.
Right.
And so hopefully we can kind of pair together some good packages of bands from, you know, different parts of the country and do some East Coast and hopefully some Perth touring as well.
The East Coast.
For a few months, and then kind of keep plugging away at that, like maybe hit some more regional towns as well where possible.
Yeah, great. Awesome. So you're thinking about that. I think most bands would be, but I thought that was a really good question.
Yeah, it's extremely good.
Yeah. Talking about the logistics for your band, there's a couple of you in Melbourne, some are in Perth. You know, how did that go with recording Black Tides of Obscurity? Did you have any logistic hurdles with the process to see this release smoothly? And if you did, how did you overcome them?
As far as getting the release done, that was fine. The recording process was the one that was like, it was a little different for us. So at the time of recording, our drummer Daniel lives in Melbourne and the rest of us were all in Perth. So to record drums, myself and Tom flew over here to spend a week and a half with Daniel working on the songs, and then in the studio with Troy McCosker down at Pony. And we just came over literally just to do drums, just to sit in the room, you know, talk about ideas and go through the recording process together. Then Tom and I flew back, and Colin and I would work on guitar and bass at home, and vocals I did just by myself, totally isolated from everyone else. And then we'd go back into a studio at the end and then do all of our guitar tone and final mic up and tweak of everything else, and then combine it all together and then ship it to Germany to get mixed.
Full on process. But you made
that's how it is. That's just how it's got to get done these days.
Yeah, exactly. You got to work with what you got, really, huh? It's good. Kudos to you guys for making it working anyway. I'm going to put those 2 scenes head to head here. What the Perth scene and the Melbourne scene? What's their pros and cons? You know, how do they compare to one another?
It's tough. There's been times where Perth has been a really strong scene with a lot of unbelievable bands, and there still are. But Melbourne just has a huge population advantage.
Yeah.
There's maybe 2.5 times more people here. So if you go to a gig in Melbourne, a local gig, and you see, you know, 150, 200 people, that's 2.5 times. If you think that would be 2.5 times what you get in Perth, but it's not. It's more like it's more like kind of you get 60% of the people at a show in Perth for like local scene stuff.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at it like population ratios, I think Perth does slightly better, but there's less people, so they kind of balance each other out a little. Obviously, I moved over here to work in live music because there is more people, and I think Melbourne as well has a bit more of a culture of going out to see live music than Perth does.
Yeah, Melbourne's a very cool place. I'm yet to go to Perth, but I'm in love with Melbourne. It's beautiful. I got to see you guys when you supported for Dimi Bulgia back in 2018. That was absolutely livid. You guys were amazing. And then I saw you again last year at New Dead Festival in Adelaide. And, you know, you guys are so tight. You brought such a solid energy to the stage. And it always amazes me when I watch you guys or any band that has this type of energy, how you bloody well sustain that the whole time. Like, is there a process that you guys go through to just make sure that you don't drop the ball on that energy and just keep that momentum up the entire set?
It's not a thing we have to really consciously focus on. Like, it's genuinely, it's the most fun that you can have on this planet. The most fun that you could possibly have is being at a live show. And so for us, obviously, it's being on stage, playing songs that I wrote with my 3 best friends to, you know, a bunch of friends in the audience and people we've never met. And I don't know, I think the energy thing is like a feedback loop. Like, if you put out big energy and the crowd reciprocates, it just gets bigger and it feels better. And the more you go back to a city, the more you have that association, and it kind of just grows every time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I felt that, especially at New Dead. That crowd had so much energy. It was such a great festival.
Adelaide's always fantastic.
It is. I love Adelaide. I miss going over there, actually. This is the first year in a couple of years I haven't been there. It's a bit sad. But anyway, it'll all pick up again soon. Let's go back to your album, Black Tides of Obscurity, and also your sound in general. You know, for me, you guys have nailed the Black and Death elements pretty bloody perfectly. You know, you're not heavy on one or the other, but there's also some really cool influences through other music that I can hear. What would you say your biggest influences are outside of metal that have shaped your sound?
It's a tough one. We listen to a lot of, like, we almost exclusively listen to non-metal when we're in, like, on the tour bus or in the van or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's interesting.
when you spend 5-6 hours at a show every single day, the last thing you want is to listen to even more metal when you're driving at like 2 a.m. or something like that. So we do listen to a ton of stuff. We listen to like a bit of blues, a lot of like 80s pop bangers, and heaps of synthwave.
Yeah, nice. Everyone needs 80s in their life, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
So you guys are now signed with Seasons of Mist record label. Congratulations, that's a huge label. These guys have some massive bands under their resume. How has this made a difference for you guys as a band? What's this album doing for you, and how important is this business relationship between, you know, band and label? What's the key element, so to speak?
It's something that we like. This is obviously our first experience. It's our first label release, and like I touched on before, a lot of it is the reach that they have and their label fan base, people that go, if Season of Mist put it out, I'm probably going to like it because I like a ton of other stuff that they put out, and they've such a fantastic track record of finding new underground bands from around the world and lifting them up a level.
Yeah. And
so for us, a lot of it has been the connection that we've been able to make through them with other countries and other regions. I think as far as us, like personally, the difference that we know, apart from kind of where the fans and where the connections are being made, is little things like when we send out an email, and if we're emailing like a webzine, or we're doing something like an interview, people get back to us a lot quicker now that we're on a label than when we're just a DIY band from Perth, you know, the city they probably haven't heard of in Australia.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, hi, we're from Perth/Melbourne. And we're signed to Season of Mist, and people go, okay, cool, let's have a chat. Why not?
Yeah, you've got that automatic credibility behind you with a label like that. That's for sure. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And they work really hard in lining up things like interviews and reviews and things like that for us, especially right now with the album freshly released.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's really good. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Renacetia, I hope I pronounced that right. I always struggle with the pronunciations of these bloody album titles.
Everything's in Latin.
Your 2017 release. This was, you know, for me, this has a lot of obvious sludge and groove elements to it as well. Whereas Black Tides of Obscurity for me is more real pure black and death metal, but you've got a lot of really quirky and interesting ambient moments through there as well, which I really enjoyed. When you guys are progressing through your writing and your music composition, how important is it for you guys as a band to keep your sound somewhat familiar for fans that have been following you guys since day one, but also progressing and experimenting? You know, how do you find that balance, or do you even think about it?
We don't really pay much thought into trying to make things like familiar and sound like what we sound like. And I think the main reason for that is because the guitar tone that we use is so distinctive and honestly like a little bit limiting that it kind of binds everything together to sound like death metal, whether it is or it isn't. Like some of our most black metal riffs, we'll put out a song or someone go, oh, I really like this. I'm hearing these great like death metal influences in this song. but the riff or the guitar work itself is really just like raw, straight above black metal.
Yeah.
But the production and the tone and the sounds that we use kind of wrap them up in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what we do is writing black metal that kind of wraps up as death metal and vice versa. So I don't think we really pay much attention into making something that's more familiar. I think it naturally leans into that. Like as we do more, it just becomes more apparent the kind of things that Earthrot is.
Yeah,
that Earthrot does.
So to speak. Yeah, I've got you, 100%.
Yeah.
So you guys started out as a 2-piece band with you and Tom. What was the turning point where you felt, okay, we need to get more people on board here? Was it just through, momentum of popularity, or what was the turning point for you guys to create a bigger band within Earthrot?
It definitely wasn't popularity. It was really just like a little side project we were doing for fun. Tom and I, like, we went to high school together. We'd always played in bands, and for a little while we both of us used to play in a band called Advent Sorrow. We were 2 of the 3 founding members of that band. And after I had left and Tom was still with them, I think at the time, and we were like, oh, we're not really playing in a band together anymore. Well, let's just do a studio project for fun. And then I think around a similar time, we started recording for fun, and we're like, well, we can't record just the 2 of us. We need a bass player, we need a drummer, we need like a band to make a full release.
Right.
So we just started recruiting members from our other bands at the time.
Okay.
And then around the time we released, I was playing in a band called Sensory Amusia, who had just kind of made the call to go like non-live, just to become more of a studio project and release more material and tour or play shows less. And then Tom had left Advent Sorrow as well. So we're like, oh, well, we're not actually playing in any bands that need to play live at the moment. So let's just push it into Earthrot. Why not?
Okay. Oh, that's cool. Very cool story. Yeah. Talking about your time, in the scene, you yourself, Earthrot started in 2013, but as you've just mentioned before that, you were in Advent Sorrow and you've been in other bands. How have you seen the scene change from you coming into the scene to say now, excluding COVID, because that's like a little bit of but yeah, have you seen it sort of grow and change for the better or the worse, or?
There's a few things that have changed. So when we first started releasing music with, I think it would have been Advent Sorrow at around 2008, 2009, digital, like illegal downloading was the thing. Like no one bought any music. There was no streaming. You just downloaded illegally and that was it.
Yeah.
But the amount of people going to shows, I think over like on average was a little higher.
Right.
So you'd play to more people. You'd probably make a little more money on the door. But as far as like selling music was really quite low. And then this resurgence of like vinyl has come up, and not just the actual sale of vinyl, but it's kind of reminded people the value in purchasing music and owning a copy of it. And so our CD sales are still pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then obviously vinyl is the one that's climbing as well. And then with things like Spotify and all the other streaming services coming in, you have some amount of income. And I think if the option is illegally download or make a small amount from streaming services, like we probably only make a few $100s a year in streaming services, but it's a few $100s we weren't getting in 2008 when everyone was just illegally downloading everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's
definitely been the biggest change. I think as well, like social media has kind of diversified a lot more. When in 2008, I think it was still MySpace. Like Facebook was still pretty fresh and not really doing anything for us. And then, Facebook came in, you've got Instagram and Twitter and everything kind of blew up. And there's so many more ways to reach more people now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is both good and bad, because now you need to stand out in a sea of thousands and thousands of bands.
They're saturated.
Yeah, it is quite saturated, but you do have the opportunity to reach them. So if you keep releasing good music, good material, good videos, writing good stuff and touring a lot, you definitely do get an extended reach that you might not have got before.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. I'd forgotten about that whole illegal download period. It
was huge, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. With this current album, have you guys sort of, I imagine you would have a mix of digital and physical copy purchases. I'm hoping the physical copies be more for you guys over digital, because that's obviously, it is nice to have the album in your hand. You just can't beat it.
Yeah, definitely. This is our first release doing an actual vinyl LP, and we've got 3 different variants in like different regions as well. So it's been huge. Like the I don't know, like the collectability is really something that's made a difference with the vinyl for this album. Like I think our best selling thing in the last, it's only been 3 months with our new album this year, but our best selling item of any kind is the Australian exclusive vinyl that we've got. It's like clear, blue and black. And that's the best selling thing we've had this year, which is fantastic because it's the first time we've done it. So now we're looking, do we reprint our previous albums in vinyl, seeing as they're selling so well? And seeing as we
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, well, seeing as we can't get out there to play shows, we're selling a lot via Bandcamp, and that gives people the digital download to listen to, on their phone or whatever when they're out exercising, or they buy it, have the copy for, stick it on the turntable at home and then listen to it on Spotify in the car or, on the commute to work.
Yeah, vinyl's definitely a thing that a lot of people are starting their collection back up again and burning massive holes in their pockets, but they're so cool. I love vinyl. It's only been 2 or 3 months since the release of your album, and I'm going to be completely greedy, but what is next for you guys? I mean, given that there isn't really a lot going on at the moment, is it giving you guys a chance just to keep pushing forward with your artistic flow and keep writing? And what are you guys up to, and what's next?
Now that we have, we kind of have, I guess, different circumstances. And so for the last album, I was still living in Perth and able to write more closely with Tom and Colin.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in Melbourne, I'm a lot closer to Daniel. So we're kind of writing in pairs on either side and then sharing things across. So for the majority, it's work on new material, see what we want to do for the next album and start piecing together all of those ideas. Unfortunately, there's not much kind of lined up with the way of touring, but I think that's the same for just about everyone at the moment. So as soon as there is even the hint of borders opening nationally, that we'll be booking flights to Perth or having the boys come here straight away and then see where we can get some shows. If we're doing half capacity venues, then so be it. I'll happily play to 50 people if that's all we're allowed to put in a room.
Yeah, we need to just get it happening. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're allowed. Listen to me, as soon as we're allowed, like I'm going to get up on stage.
You should.
So you're Black Tides of Obscurity, you've got merch. Where's the best place for people to grab themselves a copy or grab themselves a shirt? I know you guys have a Bandcamp site, but is there other places they can go and have a shop?
We've got things kind of like in a few different stores, but Bandcamp's definitely the one. I think once a month, it might be the first Friday of every month, Bandcamp are waiving their revenue. Mm-hmm. So usually they collect a few % out of each sale to pay for their costs, and they're waiving that once a month. So we're kind of pushing everything towards that. It gets us the most amount of money, which we can then take straight into recording album number 4.
Absolutely. It's awesome that Bandcamp's doing that. It's such a good initiative. Thank you so much for talking with me, Jared. I've had an absolute ball. It's been really insightful. If there's anything else you'd like to say for people that are watching, go ahead.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, please don't hesitate. Like, get on Spotify, listen to bands, get those streams through. Every little bit of money, every cent from a stream goes a long way right now when we can't get out and tour. And then especially buy some merch.
Absolutely. Cool Shatterbrain shirt.
Thanks so much.
Awesome at New Dead as well. So nice to talk to you. Thanks heaps, Jared.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys.